Our guest today has borne witness to some of the great crimes of the last 60 years, though only as one of the country's only journalists worthy of the name.
He wasn't the man behind the grassy knoll, but he did make the best film about the murder of JFK and RFK, and he's still at it.
Trusted by all sources who've ever worked with him, he's currently preparing I Happen to Know, his most sensational film to date. He is celebrated British filmmaker Chris Plumley. Chris, welcome to the show. We've just passed the anniversary, that grim day in November of 1963, the murder of JFK, which reduced me to tears as someone of an Irish Catholic background. The Kennedy family was very important to us. Only to see that repeated 5 years later in California with Robert's assassination. You got close to both stories. All these decades on now, have you revised your general take on those events? And if so, how?
I hadn't revised my take on them. Unfortunately, we're going in exactly the same direction as we were before they were shot, those boys. I mean, JFK was a serious threat to the establishment. I mean, he started off, I think, on side. I think that was, he believed in the basic principles of where he was coming from. But then something major happened. I think Cuba was a big player in this. I mean, the Bay of Pigs was obviously a CIA thing.
This happened on his watch, but had been set in train in
It had been started before he came on board, yes. And it was a serious threat to the fun they were having, really. I mean, essentially, the island of Cuba was just a huge brothel come drug-taking place. It was just where every major American businessman or crook or senator went for...
These terms are, of course, sometimes overlapping.
And I think they do overlap in all instances, and particularly at the moment. I mean, it's just, they just go from one side of the fence to the other and seamlessly drift through. It's extraordinary. So
his failure to press ahead with the overthrow of the Castro government in Cuba, that was the essential reason why he was murdered, no?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons, yeah, but it was a threat to the way in which the world was going. I mean, I think Eisenhower summed it all up in, was it in 59, where he said, beware the American military-industrial complex, which we created ourselves in 45 to combat fascism. And so you had this huge monolithic arms-making manufacturing machine that was suddenly with nothing to do. You know, what are we going to do? So, like the British SIS did in the 30s and 40s, let's create another war. Let's find another dictator we can support and load him with weapons and destroy him and rebuild, and it's become cyclical. I went to a lecture the other night about the origins of the First World War, and you wouldn't believe how complicit senior British players were.
Trust me, I would believe it.
You probably would believe it, but it's staggering what...
But Jack Kennedy challenged the Cuba policy. He challenged the Vietnam policy. He was determined to put the mafia behind bars, even more particularly his brother Robert was as the Attorney General.
Which is why he went as well.
Did the murderers come from that milieu? Were they acting at least on their behalf, even if they weren't themselves players?
The CIA were the main players in this. They were the ones that, in Robert's, for instance, Robert's assassination, they ran the investigation. So they received information to put into the report about the assassination and rejected stuff they didn't want that disagreed with their lone nutter theory. And that was the whole essence with the Oswald thing. You know, they identified a lone nutter who'd got the perfect track, is that he defected once and come back seamlessly into American society, which in itself is very difficult.
Scarcely believable, yeah.
Scarcely believable. And he was set up to do that. He was the lone nutter, as indeed Sirhan was with the Robert Kennedy assassination, and the same team were running it.
It doesn't mean that the lone nutter isn't involved in the crime, just that he has no agency.
And he's got no idea what he's doing. I mean, Sirhan could barely speak English, but you know, he was embraced by this very attractive, buxom woman, and he was a kid, he was 18 or 19, And this very attractive woman adopts him, and he's seen all over Los Angeles, bragging about dining out and with this beautiful woman. And so he made a point of being seen everywhere. And so when he was arrested, everybody knew that was it. So they just carted this poor guy off. And he had shot. I mean, he went the whole hog. He took the gun out and started firing it. But the essence of that assassination is all 77 witnesses in the kitchen said Sirhan never got closer than 6 feet in front of Kennedy. Yet the shots that killed him were fired from point-blank range into the back of his head. Yeah. So that in itself, and the coroner says this, you know, but he was sacked for saying it. So we're going way back.
For saying it.
For saying it.
Do you think the same killers were involved in killing both brothers?
I don't think so, no. I think the same, possibly department within the CIA and the Secret Service probably were. You know, there's a body that's set up to manage all this and to ensure that politicians are kept on side.
Jeremy Corbyn's experience over the last 15, 16 months or so shows what happens when a politician goes rogue, or, to put it another way, remains firm to their
And I'm terrified
principles.
for Jeremy's welfare. I am terrified for his welfare.
If he were to
because he's not diminishing. He's not, you know, he's still there. He's still on the same message.
And suggestions about assassinations of him are actually being joked around.
We have heard this, haven't we? In the mainstream media, has been suggestions that he's going to be
the Sunday Times quoting important senior Labour figures. Yeah. The only hope is that Jeremy will die.
Yeah.
Yeah, we better not go further down this road for fear of distressing his family. I happen to know, I don't know how much you're prepared to say about it. I'm hoping that you will. I happen to know that you're on the trail of a very, very explosive and important story. What are you doing?
It's essentially with Anonymous, which is a body that...
Capital A, Anonymous.
Yes, Anonymous, the movement. It's the mask is the way to identify them. Yeah. And they appeared on... I did this, you probably know about it. I did a film about police corruption for Ian Puddick.
Yes, indeed.
And that had hit about 50,000 hits and suddenly went down and disappeared. So we reposted it up. Someone said, oh, the police probably took it down, you know, because it was painted them a pretty bad picture. So we posted it back up again, and after being up there a couple of weeks, now the 50,000 hits, suddenly an anonymous mask came on the camera and came on our website with the wording underneath saying, anyone found tampering with this website will receive our full wrath, and we don't forget. So I thought, wow. You know, I've got kids on my side.
That's protection.
This is wonderful. And Ian knew the guy that had done it because he'd introduced himself when Ian was protesting in Parliament Square. And so we tracked this guy down and bought him a curry in Brick Lane and,
That's the way.
and had a talk with him. And he's a delightful kid, lovely kid, you know, was in it for the right reasons. And then I get a call from Canada to say that quite an important lieutenant within the movement had surfaced and was prepared to talk. And would I come over and... Now, whether there's a connection between what happened in London and Canada, I don't know. But
couldn't possibly comment.
I couldn't possibly comment, but it makes sense. So I went over and I met this guy who's been on the run for 6 years, and we sat in a Starbucks for 8 hours, and I listened to this avalanche of information telling me about the last 10 years of history and the official explanations which we've all lived with about stuff that's happened, and an insider's view, how Anonymous have influenced all this amazing stuff that's going on in our world, and to the good, to the benefit of us common people. Just the classic examples are the Arab Spring, the extent to which, obviously WikiLeaks were the start of it by dumping all this information about these wicked dictators. But when the wicked dictators, the Mubaraks, cut off the internet, Anonymous had these amazing ways of allowing the internet available to people by using satellite telephones, by even the conductivity of railway lines. The most extraordinary story I ever heard about how they managed to keep the people of Egypt online, which led to the insurrection. Unfortunately, it didn't end very well because America wasn't very happy about it. But essentially, they want to talk to me about where they're going and what they've been doing, because they're infiltrated it everywhere. Anonymous are everywhere. You know, they're even in the American military.
It's a kind of very, very modern, high-tech Robin Hood.
It is very much so, and that's, you know, they're all poor people. These are kids. They've got no money. And
No, they're not doing it for the money, no.
No.
On the contrary, they could sell their services.
Yeah, they could.
For plenty.
They could. Oh, yeah,
of
very
money.
much so.
So I hope RT show an interest in this.
Yeah, no, I'd
story.
like RT to be involved.
I'll certainly prod them to do so.
They do.
But are you thinking this is a 2017 film, or is it going to take you longer than that?
No, well, it depends. It depends on the route we go, and that does depend on RT, really, whether they're interested in doing it, because we've got a crowdfunding platform now going in the States, which I don't really want to push too hard until I know where RT are coming from, because I'd like to be able to do a really
Note to
big,
Moscow.
yeah, just a big launch of this thing, you know, because it's
Well, I know a bit more than you're able to say publicly, and I'm bound to tell you, my heart's beating faster for the prospect.
Oh, it did me as well.
Of this,
it does me. It's
this
such
film.
an exciting
It's
prospect.
absolutely devastating.
It's the similar sort of buzz I had when I was a kid in the 60s, when flower power and peace movements everywhere.
Now, that was the substances you were smoking.
That could have been it.
Chris Plumley, the very best of luck.
Pleasure,
with it.
George.
Thanks
Thank you for
joining
having
us
me. Thank
on
you
the
very much
Sputnik.
for having me, both of you. Thank you.